In this video, we're going to be talking about this. As you can see, and as you probably know, Vietnam is known for having some of the most chaotic traffic in all of Southeast Asia. So today, I want to show you how difficult it can be to be a pedestrian here in the city. I want to give you some live action of the streets here in Saigon to show you what it's like during certain times of the day. So we're going to talk about how the ratio of motorbikes to cars is very different here. We will get some first-hand experience to see how the rules of the road in Vietnam, especially these big cities, they just don't exist. How it's very complicated to actually move around the city on foot sometimes, unless you're in certain areas. Why driving a motorbike sometimes is just easier than walking or getting around the city by bicycle or some other form of transportation. And lastly, the most important thing is we're going to look at, is it difficult? Is it possible to cross the road in Vietnam for your first time? And should crossing the road in Vietnam be something you have to worry about?
I got very lucky. I got across very fast this time.
Well, truth is, probably. So let's head down to the streets and we're going to see what the traffic situation is like in District 3.
So it is currently 3 p.m. right now here in District 3 in Saigon, and I want to show you what the traffic looks like right now at 3 p.m. It's about a couple hours before rush hour, but then I'm going to show you what it looks like at rush hour. Now at rush hour time, it's about the same thing as it is in the morning, you know, around 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, so I don't feel the need to show you at that time. But let's head out here to the street and see what the traffic is like. So here I am out on the streets. The first thing I want to say is that there might be some rain coming soon, and if there is, that will just make traffic matters worse, because as we all know, in any place in the world, when you are driving in rain, it makes the situation always more scary and just sometimes chaotic. But let's hope it doesn't rain, because I don't really want to be caught in the rain out here. So as you can see here, I'm actually walking across a bridge. Here in Vietnam, in Saigon, there are many bridges that go over these little rivers into the other sides of districts and stuff like that. And these bridges are super helpful because they're very walkable. As you can see behind me, the sidewalk is very open, very easy to walk, despite having some trash sometimes. But it's very nice. But the bridge is way more walkable than it is sometimes on the sidewalks when you're not near the river and stuff like that. But then you can walk along the river, and the river has a nice walking area where you don't have to run into motorbikes or people or things like that, right? So I want to mention that you have your own space where actually the motorbike can't ride on, because it's up higher. There's no ramp to get on it like there is on the sidewalks in the main streets, right? But it's very good. What we're gonna do is we're gonna walk down the road here. Whoa, he's screaming. Why is he screaming? I think he's selling some juice. Anyways, we're gonna walk down the road here, see what the traffic is down here. In the distance, you can see some smog. There is a bit of smog here in the city, like there is in other Southeast Asian cities. And it's just a result of maybe poor motorbike emissions and, you know, exhaust and stuff like that. You have some very nice motorbikes here in the city, some electric ones, and then there's some really bad ones that definitely need maintenance. He's selling juice. And also, as you can see, there are a lot of bikers sometimes in Vietnam. Most of the people that are riding bicycles, they are older, elderly, just getting some exercise, and maybe they prefer to ride bicycles and not the motorbikes, but the streets aren't really suitable for riding bicycles. This much? Yeah?
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I just bought this juice from the little kid. Why not? He's trying to sell. Bye-bye! He doesn't speak English at all, and I was trying to ask him how much, and he was trying to tell me in Vietnamese, but I don't even know what this is. Is this Roselle juice or something? It's purple like a pomegranate. Hello, man. Hello. But as you can see, even the little kids sometimes are riding bikes. Maybe his parents sent him out to sell this juice, but 7,000 Vietnamese dong, I don't mind, I'm gonna help them out. Ugh. Tastes like corn. I have no idea what that is, I don't really like it, but anyways. As you can see, I just came over the bridge, I'm underneath it now to try to get away from the noise. The thing that Vietnam lacks, at least in Saigon and some of these bigger cities, maybe they have it elsewhere, I just haven't seen it. Here in Saigon, I don't ever see like the bridges for pedestrians to walk over a main road or a busy intersection. You don't see the underpassages and stuff like that. Not like you see in maybe Thailand and the Philippines and maybe Malaysia and some other places. Which is interesting because I wonder why they never built those here to go over the roads for pedestrians. Maybe they never really thought about it. I don't know. Maybe it's in more cities, like I said, and I just haven't seen it. But that's one thing that I think these big cities need to help pedestrians cross the road better. You know, the big roads here in Saigon, the big intersections, you have to cross there. They have crosswalks, they have lights. You can actually cross there because it's not too difficult since the lights actually work and people obey it more there than they do in the local areas, right? All right, right here, I'm gonna cross my first road in this video. This is just right under the bridge where the river is. It's not a very busy street at all, but there is a lot of traffic coming, but I'm gonna show you what it's like to cross this road. So, what we gotta do is wait for a little opening because this road is turning here, it's bending, and there's like a blind spot. So I'm gonna go right over here. Nobody coming? Oh, somebody's coming. Gotta wait for a little gap in the traffic here and a little gap there. Like right here. And that's what you do. You just find a little gap and then you go across. These are those very short streets that are only about, 7 to 10 steps to get across. So here in the city in Saigon and probably a lot of Vietnam, there are sidewalks, there are crosswalks and places for the pedestrians to move, right? Now sometimes people don't obey them. I mean, technically you don't really need to use them all the time because sometimes it's just worth crossing the road when you need to, as long as you can, right? But it's nice to see that the city has those for people. So one of the biggest problems with the city here in the bigger cities where there's, a heavier amount of traffic is that everyone's in a hurry. Everyone has somewhere to go. They have a time limit. They need to get from point A to point B so quickly, right? And that's what kind of makes the traffic a chaos. So sometimes when traffic is very crowded and condensed in one area, the motorbikes start to use the sidewalk because it's quicker. And you really see this in Hanoi versus you do in Ho Chi Minh City. You don't see it as much in Ho Chi Minh City, especially not in District 1 so much. You see it more in the other districts where there's less tourists, where there's less people walking on the sidewalks. So that's one thing. If it wasn't for everyone being in a hurry, then I think the traffic wouldn't be as bad. Now if you look behind me over there, you will see there are motorbikes going past, maybe some bicycles, and then cars, right? Here in the big cities and in Vietnam in general, there just isn't that many cars. So when there is a lot of traffic, the cars can kind of make things worse, right? But you might think like, well, cars are better, cars are safer, cars should be on the road and more than the motorbikes, right? Well, there are just more motorbikes here. If you've never experienced Vietnam, come here, you will see that, right? But the cars are very important because, for instance, maybe there's some garbage trucks that are picking up trash, some delivery services where they're delivering products that don't fit on a motorbike, transportation services, it's just more comfortable to be in a car. So the cars are very important here. And actually, I've noticed that there's a lot of electric vehicles popping up, such as taxis and stuff. So sometimes when the roads are very congested, and then you add the cars to the big traffic piles of motorbikes, right? It makes things much more difficult because now people are going around the cars, and the cars got to be careful because they don't want anybody to hit them, and vice versa. So it's a really difficult place to be where cars and motorbikes are trying to share the road equally. And the thing that makes it so difficult is that some of the roads just aren't suitable for cars, especially the small roads in the neighborhoods, because they are only as wide as one vehicle. So sometimes the vehicles go down these roads, but they must back out to get out. And most of the infrastructure here, the streets, the buildings, the cities and stuff, they were built for motorbikes. They weren't built for cars. They didn't really expect that maybe in the future we were going to need more cars. And that's a big issue. So hopefully in the future we will see if there will be less motorbikes and more cars. One of the issues about always being in a rush when people are traveling or driving or whatever it is that you're more likely to disobey the law. So that's when you find more drivers and motorbikes going through the red lights, you know, turning onto streets when they have a red light and they shouldn't even turn onto the street because the traffic is already going. Just breaking more traffic violations. There's not enough traffic police to kind of enforce it, especially in these bigger cities where, you know, they're outnumbered. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna make our way over to another intersection to show you how chaotic the traffic can be there and how difficult or maybe how easy it can be to cross the road. But one thing I want to show you is there are certain intersections where crossing the road is a breeze, it's not a problem. Mainly in District 1, so I'm gonna show you some of that footage now. Okay, so the next example of an intersection where there can be a lot of traffic or where it can be maybe difficult to cross the road is right here next to me by the river. This here is a T intersection. Well, sort of, there's like another side street near it, but it's mostly a T intersection. So as you can see there, that lady in the green clothing, that is the perfect example of how to cross the road here. Whether it is in a crosswalk, without a crosswalk. As you saw, she put her hand up in the air to let the drivers know, hey, I'm here, I'm walking across, go around me. And you see that everywhere, especially with the locals. You know, they put their hand out to let them know, like, hey, I'm here, because I think it's easy for the motorbikes to not see a pedestrian sometimes because they are trying to navigate through the other motorbikes. Sometimes the pedestrian just might be lost in the mess there, right? So you see that a lot with and without the crosswalk. So if you are crossing the road, you can do that and it will help you. It's a tip, it's a trick. Now, here at this T intersection, what I want to point out is there is a crosswalk here to help you cross the road. So it's much easier to cross at this point. But if you look over there on the perpendicular road, there is no crosswalk. So there it's harder to cross the road. And there is another road coming into that road, which makes it a little bit more difficult. But the reason why I say a T intersection can be very difficult to cross is because at a normal T intersection, the people coming to this road that are across, they would normally make a stop, right? And then turn left or turn right. If they're turning left at the T intersection, usually they are waiting for traffic in their gap, right? Or if there is a light, they're waiting for the green light. Well, in this sort of T intersection, there is no light. It's just go when you got a chance, right? Now this road might not be the best example because down there is a little bit of a roadblock, so people aren't coming this way. So it's a little bit different. But as you can see, it can be challenging because these cars are just immediately turning right, immediately turning left. And as you see behind me, some of the vehicles are trying to do it too. They have to go a little bit slower because the bikes just cut them off, go around them. So it's a little bit more tricky for them. All right guys, now we're gonna make our way to one of the more busier intersections, one of the most difficult intersections to cross as a pedestrian. But first, as we walk there, look behind me, nice beautiful temple. Now one thing I want to point out is when you are driving here in Vietnam, uneven sidewalks, almost tripped myself. One thing I want to point out is when you are here in Vietnam, you're driving, you're walking, the sights are very beautiful, whether you're in the big city or the countryside, there's always something to look at. So it can be very distracting, so you have to be careful. And one of the reasons why there are so many accidents, so many injuries, maybe so many fatalities here in Vietnam is because simply some people aren't paying attention on the motorbike. I just saw two girls riding a motorbike. They were both on their phone. One was driving on her phone, the passenger on her phone. So it doesn't matter what vehicle you are operating, you know, there are so many distractions that can cause you to have an accident and also to mess up the flow of traffic. So when there are accidents here in Vietnam, the traffic gets much worse, of course. Now, one thing that makes the traffic a little bit more safe here in Saigon and some of the bigger cities is how the streets are sometimes aligned with these fences behind me. If you see in the distance there, these are like little dividers to prevent people from illegally crossing the road where they shouldn't, or the motorbikes from crossing the road where they shouldn't, because it's often that motorbikes will cross into oncoming traffic just to get to where they're going, whether it's to get to a shop or to get to a certain street, right? Instead of going up and turning around like you mostly would in other cities. So they put these dividers here, or these blocking fences, to prevent illegal traffic moves or maneuvers and pedestrians going the wrong way and creating potential accidents. Alright, so behind me here is a four-way intersection here. Maybe not the straightest four-way intersection, but it is a four-way intersection. And this intersection here is just a small one, so it's not very busy, it's not very chaotic like some of the other roads. And that's what we're gonna see. We're gonna go down to the bigger intersection that's down the road and show you how much more chaotic it can be. Because this one is just in like a local neighborhood, so crossing the street isn't a problem, the traffic isn't really a problem. As you just saw though, there was a car that made the wrong turn, so they were kind of screwing up the flow of traffic, which that's the problem. Sometimes the cars and the motorbikes together, it just doesn't flow too good. As I mentioned earlier, just some of these streets, the sidewalks, are impossible to walk on. They're impassable really for pedestrians because they are mainly now for parking motorbikes because there's so many motorbikes. Sometimes for little restaurants and street stalls like behind me. So it can be difficult to walk on the sidewalk. It's more of like snaking in and out into the road and the sidewalk and back and forth. So behind me is the next example of a very busy and crazy intersection here in Saigon. This one here is about a five-way intersection, depending on what you want to consider, because there are multiple roads with two-way traffic, right? But there's pretty much a five-way intersection here that is just absolute chaos. There are lights here for the traffic, there are lights here for the pedestrians, but people do not follow them. So if you look over here behind me, there's a little bit of a bumper-to-bumper happening because somebody is crossing the road. Maybe she's crossing the road when she's not supposed to, I don't know, but that is causing the traffic to come to a halt. And the reason why I want to show you this intersection is because of what's happening now behind me. Because somebody messed up and they messed up the flow or they disrupted it, now you have this. It's just chaos now. There was, a system to it. This road went first, then this road, and now it's just like a free-for-all. So it's going to take a while for the light to reset and for the traffic to get back under control. You can hear the beeping and everything is happening here. But that's the result of the busy, chaotic, crowded streets here in the bigger cities of Vietnam. Alright, so as you can see here at this intersection, there are multiple pedestrian crossings, right? There's about 3 or 4 of them, 3 with crosswalks and the other ones without crosswalks. Well, as you can see, when that light turns green, somebody begins to walk, but the traffic continues down that road because the reason for it is that if these motorbikes, if these cars don't go when people have the walk signal, it creates a bigger traffic jam all the way down the road. So they figure just go and weave it in and out, and the people can try to get across the road when they have the chance. So it's very, very dangerous, and it takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of skill to get used to it. Hello! People are really friendly here, of course, but yeah. This is just one of the crazier intersections that I've found here where I'm staying. But now we're gonna go to the main road where the traffic is a little bit faster, but also very, very difficult to cross that road, and it's one of the most difficult I found yet here in Vietnam. So as I was just leaving that intersection there, I want to say, that lady that was crossing the road that was holding people up, she was crossing again. So I think she's doing it on purpose, maybe to try to earn some money or something, because she puts a chair on one side of the road, and then she just starts walking across. And I'm sure she's been doing it for a very long time, but it causes a very big traffic jam there, so it's not such a good thing, but that's what it means. Sometimes, these traffic violations and stuff like that, pedestrian violations, they're not enforced. All right, the last intersection I want to show you guys where the traffic can be quite crazy is actually just right next to where I started the video. It is another pretty big intersection because there are basically two like T-intersections or two triangular intersections right here. So one's behind me where the traffic is turning the corner where I'm turning the corner, and then down there you have a straight road because this is a main road that runs through the city here. And as you can hear, the beeping is getting pretty loud because the traffic is definitely picking up, and it just rained, and it was a quick downpour. Well, as you can see again, here there are some crosswalks, there are some lights, but they are disobeyed. Here behind me is a green pedestrian light that I need to go across, but the traffic is going like in both directions almost, so it's almost impossible to cross. And right now, you have to be very strategic to be able to get across the road. But I'm gonna hopefully find a local that's gonna go across. I'm gonna watch them do it, and I'm gonna try to go across with them, see if it'll work. As you can see there, one girl just crossed the road, but it was very tricky. She couldn't go at one pace. She had to kind of stop to kind of get in and around the motorbikes. And that's the thing, when you're crossing the road here in Vietnam, usually you just got to keep one pace, and it's the safest way to get across. But in busy intersections like this, it is impossible. And just like that, I crossed the road. I got very lucky. I got across very fast this time. I just tried to move quickly. Thankfully, the traffic was a little bit heavy, but they were going slow enough to where I could kind of go in between the motorbikes very fast, which is the difficult thing to do sometimes. So as you can see from this video, crossing the road, you know, dealing with traffic here in the bigger cities like Saigon, where I am, or Ho Chi Minh City, it's no easy task. It's very difficult, and I can only imagine driving can be a little bit more stressful sometimes. But maybe for some people, they would say driving is easier than walking. For the vehicles that are on the road, from my experience, I've noticed green light means go, right? Red light for them is more like don't go, but go if you think there's room and if you can make it, even though you shouldn't, right? For the pedestrians now, green means go. You're supposed to go because there's a crosswalk, you go for it, right? Be careful though, because there's probably a few people that will run the red light and there is a risk that you can still be hit. Now red, just don't go because it's not worth it. The traffic can be too crazy. And when you are crossing the road in a crosswalk, follow other people. Don't be the first person. Don't be the last person. But if you're crossing the road and you're not in a crosswalk, definitely you have to be super cautious and follow local if you can. It's easier. But the best thing to do sometimes, just put your hand up. Just let them know, hey, like I want to get across the road, let me go. And they will slow down usually and they'll try to let you go. So that's the good thing. Now I know what you guys are thinking. You're probably like, oh, that's not even that bad. It's even worse in other places, you know, in different parts of the city, maybe different parts of the country. Yeah, sure, it probably is. I'm not gonna lie. But this is just my experience, what I've seen, and how I can relay it to you people that maybe want to know about the traffic situation or are coming here and want to know how to safely cross the road and that sort of thing, right? But also, yes, Vietnam maybe isn't as bad as some other countries. Like, for instance, I've heard Bangladesh is just chaotic for trying to get across the road. So I know this is probably easy compared to that, but still, I think crossing the road is a skill. It takes time. You have to practice, you have to do it, right? To be able to effectively cross the road every time without, you know, causing an accident or being too afraid or whatever it be. But also for the traffic, I don't drive in Vietnam, I never have. So I don't know how that goes, but I'm sure that is also a skill in itself because you see very young people driving, you see people driving with a whole family on the bike, carrying many things. So just traffic in general here and navigating the roads can be quite difficult if you are maybe outside of District 1 where it's more touristy and more walkable. Lastly, just avoid traffic, just avoid walking on the streets at rush hour in the morning and late afternoon because then it's probably not as much of a problem. But overall, if crossing the road doesn't seem like it's your forte, just go to a smaller city. It'll be much easier and you won't really have to deal with such things like that. But if you want to visit these big cities in Vietnam, you gotta learn. And I hope this video will be helpful for you, but just know, crossing the road in Vietnam and dealing with the traffic is like that old game Frogger. Sometimes you make it, sometimes you don't, and you have to turn around or you hesitate. But anyways, that's my video. That's traffic here in Vietnam. That's what it's like to cross the road. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon in the next video. Maybe from Vietnam, maybe from another country. I don't know. Peace out.